1,800 euros a month for a shoebox, for fuck's sake. Guy made a comment there the other day on my YouTube channel about a property that I was after buying, and I mentioned the figure, investment property, I mentioned the figure of 1,800 euros a month rent. Now, the figure I mentioned was pure speculation, it was just an estimate. Now, as it happens, that is precisely the figure that I've let the property for since I made the video. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about the mistake many people make in relation to value and figures, and the mistake people make in relation to nominal values or face value. In other words, this guy said that 1,800 euros a month for a shoebox, for fuck's sake. That was actually the comment. And of course, that's an absurd comment. There's the train there now, actually. But it makes the point that I want to, or illustrates the point that I want to make in this video. Nominal values are ridiculous ways to value anything or to form a view. So 1,800 euros for a shoebox, 1,800 euros per month for a shoebox, a 2-bedroom house, for example, in Dublin 4, Donnybrook, Ballsbridge, is an absolute steal. 1,800 euros a month for a 2-bedroom house in Enfield here is a little bit, is probably on the wrong side of good value. It's certainly not a steal. And then 1,800 euros a month for a 2-bedroom house between, say, Edenderry and Clonbelogue, or in some bog someplace, is expensive. But you can see the nominal value, the face value of 1,800 euros a month is of little assistance. What's important is the relative value. What's important is the context. What's important is where is the property. So 1,800 quid for a 2-bedroom house in Donnybrook or Ballsbridge, as I say, is fabulous value. The same thing applies in relation to anything you can consider. You cannot make judgments based on nominal or face values alone. You must look at the context and you must look at relative values. Let me give you an example. Let's say I have a business and I'm under pressure and cash flow is a big problem, but profitability is quite good, and I need a few bob fast to pay a pressing bill, or maybe to pay the revenue commissioners or something of that nature. And let's say the only person that will give me the money wants 10% or 15% or 20%. You might think that's a robbery. You might think that the nominal value, the face value of 10, 15 or 20% would make that an appalling deal. But that's not an appalling deal at all. If that 10 grand or that money that I need to borrow allows me to keep going, and my business is fundamentally and essentially very profitable, that could be just the price I need to pay to keep going. It could be a temporary blip. So the fact that somebody is offering me money at 5%, 10%, 15% or 20% makes absolutely no difference. The point is, relative to what I can do with the money, and relative, and taking into account the context of my business and how profitable it is, then that could be a great value and it could be a great deal. But you'll have lads telling you, oh, 10% money, 15% money, that's crazy stuff. It's not, because they're making the mistake of failing to look at the relative value, and they're failing to look at the context. Here's another example. Let's say I offer you a second-hand car for 25,000 euros. You might say 25,000 euros for a second-hand car is an awful lot of money. Are you crazy? But if the second-hand car is a Porsche or a year-old BMW, clearly it's good value. So this mistake, a lot of people make this mistake of using a nominal value, a face value, to make judgments or decisions is crazy and it's irrational. And you'll have it all the time as well in relation to maybe going out foreign or living in a foreign country like Australia or the United Kingdom or wherever, and they'll say you can get a 2-bed apartment in Sydney for, let's just say, $1,000. But if the cost of living in Sydney is absolutely frightening, and if the average income in Sydney, is not able to support $1,000 a month for an apartment, what's important there is not the nominal rent for the apartment. What's important is the relative values, the context. So people make decisions and make stupid comments all the time based on nominal values or face values, when in fact they should be looking at context. So for that guy commenting that €1,800 a month for a shoebox is shocking and it's appalling and so on, it's not. It depends on the context. It depends on the relative value. It depends on the proximity to work. It depends on the cost of living. It depends on the location and so on. So, people make this mistake all the time, and I discovered this myself a long time ago as a young man, because I could have borrowed maybe 100 grand back in 1986 or thereabouts, or I could have borrowed 10 grand. And you might think that borrowing the 100 grand is a far more frightening prospect than borrowing 10 grand. But it's not. Not if you have the capacity to repay the 100 grand and you don't have the capacity to repay the 10 grand. And to put the shoe on the other foot, it's quite possible that 5 grand to keep in business, just 5 grand, is an appalling amount of money if you're unable to get your hands on the 5 grand. So I hope you see the point that I'm making, that judging something on the face value or nominal value of either a house or a car, rental property or whatever is absurd. You must look at the context. You must look at the relative value. What's €1,800 a month relative to a person's capacity to earn a good living, get a job, be close to services, be close to public transport, etc., etc. They're the key things you need to be looking at, not just some random figure saying, oh, that's appalling, or 5 years ago or 10 years ago you could have got that for €800 a month. Doesn't make any difference. We're not living 5 or 10 years ago. We're living now in this society, in this market, in these circumstances. That's the only metric you can actually value or use figures properly and logically and cogently, I believe. Anyway, down here at the canal in Enfield, it's a beautiful day. I think it's the 10th of October. It's an absolutely lovely day, crisp and really nice. And as I say, I'm down the canal bank in Enfield. Lovely place for a walk, just to blow the cobwebs off and get out of the office for an hour. Hope you liked the video. If you do, hit the thumbs up button down below. And if you're the lad that said €1,800 a month for a shoebox, for fuck's sake, you really need to get some thinking going on. You really need to begin to think logically and with a bit of grey matter. Hope you find the video useful. If you do, hit the thumbs up button down below, and if you want to subscribe to my channel, hit the subscribe button. Thanks a lot. One final point, just if you go back to my original comment there about the €1,800 a month and the fella saying €1,800 a month for a shoebox, that's shocking. Consider if you were getting €1,800 a month and you paid let's say you paid 100 grand for the place. That's one scenario. Another scenario is you're getting €1,800 a month, but you paid 200 grand for the place. It's scenario 2. And then there's scenario 3. Let's say you paid 300 grand for the place and you're only getting €1,800 a month. Remember, you're still getting €1,800 a month, but the investment from scenario 1, 2 and 3, the return on investment is significantly different. And the values of the investment, and the return, and whether you got good value or bad value, etc., is clearly going to range wildly from the 100 grand scenario to the 200 grand scenario to the 300 grand scenario. So €1,800 a month in rent, nominal figure, it means absolutely nothing in terms of making a qualitative judgment. Anyway, hit the like button. Thanks a lot.